Hello there, fellow Christ followers. It's time for another video here during the middle of this week. Today I wanted to take us to Philippians chapter 4. And as usual, we certainly don't have time to cover the entire chapter, just a few verses. I want to start with verse 4, and we covered a few weeks ago, we talked about rejoicing in the Lord and having joy. And he begins in verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I will say rejoice. And I pointed out then that the fact that he repeats that is very important to Paul, that we choose to rejoice in the Lord. And remembering that this joy is not governed or dictated by our circumstances, but it's a deep contentment that we have because of our trust and reliance upon the Lord, knowing his character. But he continues on, rejoice. He says, let your reasonableness or your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. I don't know if he means the Lord's about to come back or remember that the Lord is watching. And then he goes into this verse 6, do not be anxious about anything. And I think I've referenced this before, but do not be anxious about anything. Certainly we live in a culture, and the fact is this is not new, it seems to be intensifying, but we live in a culture that we're inundated every day with reasons to be anxious, reasons for anxiety. We live in a culture that the newscast, the news sites, those of you that still may hold a newspaper in your hand, if you do very much of that, you're going to wind up with a propensity to be anxious about everything that you see. And yet Paul tells, and this is a guy writing, by the way, we have to point this out. This is a guy writing while incarcerated, while in a Philippian jail. And those jails were not like the ones we have today. They were dirty and grimy and rodents everywhere. And so while in this place of incarceration in Philippi, he writes this letter. A Roman jail. I said Philippian jail. He writes this letter to the church at Philippi, and he says, do not be anxious about anything. So I guess if he in that place can say to not be anxious, we certainly should take it upon ourselves to endeavor to resist anxiety. He says, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be known to God. And I pointed out before, I believe it's the gratitude and prayer that keeps us from being anxious. Prayer is not just petitioning God to do what we want him to do, and it's not asking him for stuff, although that is part of it. But prayer is really more than anything. I guess the best way to explain this, years ago I did a series on prayer, and the title of the series was Engaging with God Through Prayer. The point is that we engage with God. He doesn't necessarily need us to tell him or ask him what to do. But we need to communicate with God. We need to engage with God and receive life from him. And so the key to not being anxious about things and not letting anxiety dominate your life, I think, is prayer, which is a continual connection with God, engaging with God, supplication and gratitude, thankfulness. I believe those are the key to not allowing anxiety to govern our lives. And then he continues on, he says, and, in other words, the result of prayer, supplication, and thanksgiving, let your request be known. I think the result of that is the peace of God. And note that it's the peace of God. It's not just peace. Do you think there's any turmoil in heaven? Do you think God is anxious? No. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, we cannot comprehend this peace, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So it's so important that we would engage with God. And obviously you can't walk around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week praying and doing the things that we might think are necessary, but it is possible to live every moment in the presence of God. live every moment practicing the presence of God, as the title of the book says. And to have prayer and thanksgiving constant, to always have a thankful heart and to offer God thanksgiving. It's possible to do all of that. And that brings us to a place that the peace that comes from the throne of God will guard our hearts and our minds. That's a key thing. Because where does the enemy attack us except in our mind, in our thought life? He said, and then he gives us some pretty good instruction here. And this is, I've said recently several times, this might be good bathroom material, bathroom mirror material, or refrigerator material. This is another one. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is the truth, we need to deal in the truth. Whatever is honorable, whatever would bring honor, whatever is worthy of honor, whatever is just, or you could say justice there, whatever is pure, whatever is untainted by sin and the world system, whatever is lovely, and that's an interesting word. There's not lovely in the sense of physical beauty, but it's lovely in the sense of amiable, that you are a person, that you would be a person who would be lovable, that you would be a person that would have an amiable attitude towards others, and as the phrase says, learn to play with others. He says, whatever is commendable. The New King James there says, whatever is of a good report, whatever is commendable, whatever, if there is any excellence. And I will tell you that today in the church, we need more excellence. We need people to gravitate to being excellent human beings in every part of our lives. And most of that is manifested in our work life and in the daily activities that we have. If there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, and here's the key, think about these things. What do we find ourselves thinking about? Well, we usually find ourselves thinking about whatever we're giving attention to, whatever we're giving the majority of our time and attention to. This noggin sitting on top of my shoulders has been called a 1 pound or a 2 pound computer. I guess it depends on your intelligence. I don't know, but whether or not, whatever the poundage is, this is a computer. And of course, in computer jargon is simply this: garbage in, garbage out. And so we're saying righteous in, righteous out. And that's why Paul says if you want to live in a life free of anxiety and free of constantly wringing your hands, then through prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, make your request be known to God and be anxious about nothing. There's no reason to. And then he says, here's how you can really accomplish that. Think about these things. True, honorable, just, pure, amiable, commendable. If there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about the things that are people who are worthy of praise. Don't hesitate to give honor to people. Now, give honor to whom honor is due. Brother Charles Simpson says, whatever we honor, we get more of. And so if someone is worthy of praise, worthy of honor, they've done something or are doing something that is commendable, give them the honor due them. That doesn't mean you exalt them to the place of God, but give them the honor. He said, and whatever you've learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things. Whatever you've seen me doing, do that. He finishes up. He says, I know how to be brought low and I know how to abound in every circumstance. I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. No matter the case, our position financially does not dictate our peace. He said, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. And of course, the better rendering of that verse is, I can do all the things which Christ strengthens me to do. Now, you have a week and a month and a year where you are free from anxiety and that the peace of God would guard your hearts. Think on these things. Have a great day and a week, and go out there and act like somebody who's governed by the peace of God. Good day.